Olivia Adame never considered herself weak. Worn, yes. Tired, often. But weak? No. Not after everything she had survived. Life had trained her to bend, but not to break. She had lived through hunger, betrayal, silence, and death, but none of it prepared her for the moment her own son looked her in the eye and canceled her worth. The day began with excitement. Olivia had ironed her new blue lace the night before. It shimmered in the sunlight as she held it against her skin. Tonight was Obina's big night, a formal tech gala, awards, photographs, industry praise. And she, his mother, the woman who carried him on her back, was finally going to be part of his success. She packed a small clutch bag. Inside, her ID card, a pressed handkerchief, and a folded photo of Obina at age 12, smiling with chipped teeth after his first school prize. Her heels clicked gently on the tiles as she walked to the parlor. The television was on, though she wasn't watching. In her mind, she rehearsed greetings for ministers and CEOs. She imagined how proud Obina would be when he introduced her. He came home at 3 p.m., unusually quiet. Cynthia followed behind, gold bangles jingling. Olivia smiled, already rising to greet them. "Mama," Obina began, avoiding her eyes. "We need to talk." She sat down slowly. "Cynthia and I have been thinking," he continued. "Tonight's event is not for everyone." Olivia tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "We canceled your ticket." The sentence hit her chest like ice water. "Cynthia said it best," he added. "You may feel out of place. You know how Lagos society is. I don't want you to be uncomfortable." He was choosing his words, pretending concern, but it didn't mask the message. "You don't want to be embarrassed," she said softly. Obina said nothing. Cynthia shifted her weight and laughed under her breath. Olivia stood. Her voice trembled. "Obina, I sold groundnuts to pay your school fees. I washed people's clothes while you slept. I said no to good men so you could grow without confusion. And now you think I'll embarrass you?" "Mama, please." "No," she interrupted, her voice rising. "Don't mama me now." He opened the door. Cynthia had already stepped outside. "Rest, Mama," Obina said. "We'll talk later." The door closed. The gate followed. Then silence. Olivia stood alone in the parlor, still wearing her lace. Her hand dropped to the photo in her bag. She sat down, removed her heels, and let her tears fall without shame. They were not new tears. They came from a deep well, long covered but never dry. And then, as if summoned by fate's strange humor, her phone rang. "Madam Olivia," the voice said. "This is Barrister Baymetal. I represent your late father's estate. Are you sitting down?" "I am. There's something we've uncovered. Your father made long-term investments, very discreet. One of them, an old holding group, now owns a controlling stake in Olive Hospitality. Sorry, you're the primary beneficiary. Madam Olivia, you own Olive Hotel." She laughed, not because it was funny, but because disbelief had to go somewhere. The venue of the gala tonight, where her son feared she might not belong, was her property. The evening moved like a dream. 3 black SUVs arrived at her gate. A Bentley gleamed at the front. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Some snapped photos. Olivia stepped out in royal blue lace, now reborn as royal attire. Her driver opened the door. Barrister Baymetal stood waiting. "Ma," he said. "Time to go." Inside the Bentley, Olivia said little. She clutched a small box on her lap. Her late husband's photo, the deed papers, and her mother's wrapper. They drove through Lagos, past the dusty roads and neon lights, toward the center of power, Victoria Island. At the Olive Hotel, the ballroom sparkled. Golden chandeliers. Live band. Waiters in bow ties. Guests in tuxedos and floor-length gowns. At the front, Obina and Cynthia laughed with industry leaders, showing off their matching watches and curated smiles. Then the lights dimmed. The MC, in a glittering black tux, tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you tonight not just to celebrate innovation, but to witness history." He paused. "Please rise for the new owner and CEO of Olive Hotel, Madam Olivia Adame." A gasp moved through the room like electricity. Phones rose. Heads turned. And then, she entered. Her heels clicked like a judge's gavel. Her chin lifted. Her lace shimmered beneath the chandeliers. Cynthia's mouth dropped. Obina went pale. A champagne glass slipped and shattered on the marble floor. Olivia didn't falter. She reached the stage. took the microphone, faced the room. I was told I didn't belong here tonight, she began, her voice steady. That I was too old. That I'd embarrass my son. But this hall, this hotel, is mine. The crowd froze. I dedicate this night not to myself, but to every parent who gave up their life so a child could have one. To the mothers who sell their wrappers so their children can wear suits. To the fathers who sleep hungry so their sons can be full. Her eyes met O'Bina's. Success should never come with amnesia. Thunderous applause. Guests stood. Celebrities nodded. Ministers clapped. And O'Bina shrank, suddenly no longer the man of the hour. When she walked off the stage, no one stopped her. They only stepped aside. That night, she didn't return to her son's house. She drove instead to a new property in Lekki, also hers, courtesy of a forgotten investment. It was silent there, clean, bright. She unpacked quietly, laid her wrapper on the bed, lit a small candle. She prayed without words. The next morning, her chair in O'Bina's parlor was empty. Her room, vacant. Her presence, erased. At 10 a.m., a message arrived on O'Bina's phone. You chose her over me. I carried your dreams on my back. Now carry your life without me. Focus on your wife. Do not look for me again. And with that, the mother he once dismissed became a headline. Morning arrived with the smell of silence. O'Bina sat alone in his mother's empty room, staring at the space where her small TV used to hum through morning prayers. Her slippers were gone. Her perfume, faint, fading. Even the bed looked unfamiliar now, stripped bare of its purpose. He reached for his phone again. 5 missed calls the day before. 11 messages unread. None answered. In the living room, Cynthia sat in one corner of the couch, hands clasped, head bowed. Her makeup-free face looked older, smaller. The woman who once ordered drivers like staff now whispered apologies to the air. I didn't think she'd actually leave, she said, barely audible. O'Bina looked at her. You didn't think she'd mean it? He replied. You pushed me to cut her off. I wanted us to shine, Cynthia whispered. I didn't want her overshadowing me at the event. O'Bina scoffed bitterly. Well, she did, without saying a word. You saw that ballroom. The applause. The looks. They weren't for us. Cynthia's eyes welled. I was foolish. You were cruel, O'Bina corrected. And I let you be. He walked to the front door and stepped outside. The sun was sharp. Lagos bustled on as if nothing had changed. But inside, his house felt like a crime scene. The next few days dragged. Cynthia couldn't bring herself to leave the house. O'Bina moved like a man with weight strapped to his back. He tried calling Olivia every morning. No reply. No delivery receipts. Just silence. Then one afternoon, a black SUV pulled up to their gate. Barrister Baymetal stepped out. O'Bina ran to meet him, barefoot. Please, he begged. Where is she? Let me speak to her. I'll kneel in the street if I have to. She isn't ready to see you, the lawyer replied calmly. But she sent this. He handed over a sealed brown envelope. O'Bina tore it open. Inside, a single handwritten letter. O'Bina, my silence is not punishment. It is protection. I gave you everything. I carried your hunger, your fees, your shame. I turned down companionship, comfort, joy, because I chose to raise you without distraction. You repaid that with rejection, with pride. I'm not angry. I'm tired. I won't close my door forever. But don't knock too soon. Let me rest. Your mother. O'Bina's hands trembled. He fell to the ground right there in the compound, the paper pressed to his chest. Cynthia came out slowly. She read the letter over his shoulder, and tears streamed freely down her face. That night, they didn't speak. They didn't eat. The house echoed with a loneliness that even electricity couldn't distract from. Days turned into a week. The house changed. Cynthia no longer spoke with her usual sharpness. She wore plain clothes, cooked without being asked, watched old wedding videos with regret on her face. One night, she turned to O'Bina and said something he never expected to hear. If divorcing me will heal this, I'll leave. I won't stand in the way of your mother forgiving you. He looked at her. The arrogance had drained out of her completely, but he couldn't answer. His own shame hadn't loosened its grip. On the 12th day, a call came. Unknown number. O'Bina answered without hesitation. O'Bina, said the voice, calm, unwavering. His breath caught. Mama. Yes. He blinked, stunned. Please, please let me see you. You have one chance, she said. Come to my house in Lekki. 10 a.m. tomorrow. The line clicked off. He sat frozen for a moment, then turned to Cynthia, who had just entered the room. She called, he said softly. She wants to see us. Cynthia dropped to her knees, covered her face, and sobbed. They arrived early. The Lecky estate was quiet, lush, immaculate. Olivia's mansion stood out even among wealth. A clean white facade with golden gates and climbing flowers. 2 uniformed guards stood at the entrance. The kind of guards who knew how to say no without blinking. Name, one asked. Obina Adame. With my wife. A pause, then a nod. They were ushered in. Inside, the house gleamed. Marble floors, tall ceilings, white curtains gently moving with the AC breeze. Every detail whispered discipline, taste, power. And there, at the far end of the living room, sat Olivia. She wore a cream-colored gown, simple but flawless. A small gold necklace around her neck. She didn't rise. She didn't extend her arms. She simply looked at them, calm, composed, unreadable. Obina's knees gave out. He dropped. Mama, please, he choked. I wronged you. I dishonored you. I can't live with what I did. Cynthia fell beside him. Mama, she said, tears falling freely. I twisted his heart. I made him see you as a burden. I was proud. I thought I was protecting my place. But I see now. I was pushing you out. If it means letting him go to fix this, I will. Just don't hate us. Olivia took a long breath. You think forgiveness is cheap? She asked, voice quiet but firm. You think you can cut a mother out of your life and come back with flowers and tears? Obina bowed lower. No, I don't think that. I think I don't deserve it. Silence. Then Olivia stood, walked slowly to them. For nights, she said, I asked God whether I should erase you, whether I should write a will without your name. Cynthia gasped. But I remembered who I am, Olivia said. I am the woman who carried you both, one in her body, one in her home. She turned away, walked to a cabinet, took out 2 envelopes, returned. You want redemption? She asked. Then earn it. She handed the envelopes to them. They opened them slowly. Inside, appointment letters, management positions, Olive Hotel, department heads. You'll report Monday, she said. You'll work. You'll listen. You'll prove that you've changed. They nodded through tears. Olivia's voice softened. I have forgiven you. But forgiveness is not the same as trust. Trust is earned. They both nodded again. Olivia looked at Cynthia. You. I don't hate you. But I will watch you. Closely. I will not tolerate another knife dressed as a smile. Cynthia dropped her head, humbled beyond recognition. Then Olivia did something unexpected. She stepped forward, placed her hands on both their heads. Lord, she whispered, if they are sincere, bless them, heal them, and give them fruit. Let their house no longer be dry. Tears flowed down Obina's cheeks. Cynthia sobbed uncontrollably. The house fell silent. They stayed like that for minutes. Then Olivia stepped back. You may go now. Monday is not far. They bowed, thanked her, promised again. As they left the house, the guards at the gate opened the doors without a word. They walked out, not as victors, but as students on probation. On Monday morning, Obina stood outside Olive Hotel in a plain navy blue shirt. No driver, no fanfare, no perfume of entitlement. Just a man with a briefcase and a head bowed lower than the Lagos humidity. Cynthia arrived 10 minutes later. Her heels were modest. Her earrings, plastic. No designer handbag, no false lashes. Only a notebook and the tension of someone preparing for trial. They walked in together. Reception greeted them with polite professionalism, not deference. Staff watched them, whispered quietly. They were not royalty here. They were new hires. Ordinary. Vulnerable. Their appointment letters were verified. IDs issued. Departments assigned. They signed forms like everyone else. Olivia didn't greet them. Didn't welcome them. She simply sent a short message to HR. They are to be treated as staff, not family. Hold them to standard. No more. No less. And so began the reckoning. Obina was placed in guest services management. Cynthia in housekeeping operations. It wasn't glamorous. Obina was briefed on staff scheduling, incident reports, and emergency protocols. He inspected faulty ACs, handled late check-ins, resolved complaints about room service delays. Cynthia supervised linen supplies, verified cleaning rosters, addressed complaints about missing towels, and once, personally inspected a clogged drain in a VIP suite. Every day they reported. Every evening they left tired, shoes dusty, hands stiff from note-taking. No one bowed. No one praised. They were simply expected to perform. And somehow they did. Humility began to dig its roots. Obina started listening more than speaking. He apologized quickly. He stayed late without being asked. Cynthia grew quieter. She no longer snapped at staff. She thanked janitors. She spent time shadowing long-term workers. Even brought breakfast once for a stewardess on her feet since 5 a.m. Olivia said nothing. She watched. From a distance. Through CCTV, through departmental reports, through whispered feedback from her most trusted managers. And slowly, a change began to show. One morning, Olivia walked into Obina's department unannounced. She asked for the weekly report. He presented it. Typed, detailed, cross-referenced. She flipped through silently, then nodded once. "You're learning," she said, then left. It was the first word she had spoken to him in weeks. At home, things were changing too. Cynthia began cooking. Voluntarily. She insisted they say grace before meals. Obina, once dismissive of prayer, now joined her. They had fewer guests. Fewer parties. More quiet. And then, something unexpected happened. Cynthia fainted in the kitchen. Obina rushed her to the hospital, heart racing. For 20 minutes, he sat in the waiting room, thinking the worst. When the doctor finally walked out, holding a folder, he said 2 words. "She's pregnant." Obina froze. "What?" The doctor smiled. "She's carrying twins. Congratulations." Obina blinked, stunned. Twins. After 5 years of trying. After 4 failed IVF consultations. After 2 miscarriages. He drove home in silence. Cynthia held the test result like scripture. "Mama's prayer," she whispered. It worked. They cried together on the floor that night. They couldn't wait. The next day, they drove to Lekki. Olivia was in her garden, watering roses. "Mama," Cynthia called out, voice shaking. "Your prayer worked." Olivia turned. Her eyes dropped to the envelope in Cynthia's hands. "I'm pregnant," Cynthia said. "Twins." The watering can dropped. Olivia walked forward slowly. Her hands covered her mouth. She touched Cynthia's belly, then pulled her into an embrace. "My daughter," she whispered. "God has answered." Obina stood beside them, tears in his eyes. "Mama, thank you," he said, "for not giving up on us." Olivia placed a hand on his chest. "Don't thank me," she said. "Thank God. But remember, he only moves where humility lives." She invited them in, cooked pepper soup herself, set the table. For the first time since the banquet, they laughed together. The months flew. Cynthia's belly grew. Olivia insisted on supervising her diet. She brought herbs, boiled soups, told stories of cravings and swollen feet. She held Cynthia's hand through nausea and mood swings. Obina became attentive, gentle, present. He prayed at night. He called his mother every morning. He left work early when Cynthia felt unwell. He began reading books on fatherhood. Olivia didn't say it aloud, but her heart softened. Then labor. Twin girls. Full term. Healthy. Mimi and Mara. Tiny. Wrinkled. Perfect. Cynthia wept when she saw them. Obina kissed their foreheads, then held Olivia's hand and kissed it too. "You carried me. Now you carry them," he said. She didn't respond, just nodded, eyes blurred. A week later, they held a naming ceremony. The same banquet hall. The same chandeliers. The same marble floor that once caught Obina's shattered glass. But this time, joy. Guests arrived early. The press stood back. There were no speeches from CEOs, no red carpet. Just music. Laughter. Family. Olivia took the mic only once. "Many years ago," she began, "I was told I wasn't fit to attend an event in this very hall." She smiled faintly. "Today, I stand here as a grandmother to 2 crowns of joy, Mimi and Mara. And to every parent listening, sacrifice is never wasted, even when it seems forgotten." The hall erupted. Cameras flashed. Staff clapped. Even the chef stepped out to wipe his eyes. Obina stood beside her, holding both girls in his arms. Cynthia clutched his sleeve. Their journey had changed. So had they. But Olivia, she remained what she always had been. The root. The pillar. The reason. The house was full again. Not with noise, but with life. Every morning, Mimi and Mara cried in perfect coordination. One started, the other followed like an echo. Cynthia, sleepless and often overwhelmed, leaned on Olivia more than she admitted. And Olivia, well, she thrived. She bathed them gently, sang lullabies from her mother's village, taught Cynthia how to hold a baby when gas colic strikes at midnight. Her hands were steady, her voice calm. She hadn't mothered in years, but the instincts had never left. Albino watched from the doorway many evenings, a quiet observer to a portrait he never thought he'd see again. His mother in her element, not as CEO, not as symbol, but simply as Mama. Cynthia began calling her that, too. Not Ma, not Madam, just Mama. With softness, with truth. And Olivia? She responded without flinching. There were no apologies anymore. Only rhythm, only healing. Work at Olive Hotel continued. But things had changed. Obina now ran departmental meetings with humility. He consulted junior staff, listened to housekeepers, took feedback seriously. He had become, in the quietest sense, a leader. Cynthia's transformation was more surprising. She had gone from suspicion to service. Once obsessed with perception, she now handled logistics for the hotel's community outreach programs. She organized free training sessions for unemployed youth, lobbied for maternity accommodations for staff, and even took marketing courses online at night. Olivia remained CEO. She made no promises about stepping down, but she delegated more now, gave Obina and Cynthia room to prove that their change was not cosmetic. And they did. At board meetings, investors noted the stability. At conferences, Olivia was introduced not just as founder, but as matriarch of a growing legacy. At home, Mimi and Mara began to crawl. One evening, Olivia stood on the balcony holding Mara while Obina worked beside her on a report. "You know," he said quietly, "I used to think I deserved success." She looked at him. "Now," he continued, "I think I was only borrowing your sacrifices, living on credit." Olivia said nothing. She just handed him the baby. "Carry her," she said. "She's light now, but wait till she starts walking." Obina chuckled, but understood. The foundation began as a whisper, a thought Olivia had carried for years. But now, surrounded by redemption, she decided it was time. One Sunday afternoon, she gathered them in the sitting room. Mimi and Mara lay on a blanket nearby, cooing. Cynthia held a notepad. Obina was half distracted, glancing at his phone. "I've bought a plot," Olivia said. They both looked up. "In Aja, where that old market used to be. I want to build something there." "Another hotel?" Obina asked. "No," she said. "A foundation. The Uche Foundation." Obina's brow furrowed. "You're naming it after?" "Your father. And all the forgotten people." She continued. "I want to create a place for widows, orphans, former prisoners, homeless youth. A place to give them what I gave you. A chance." Cynthia's mouth opened slightly. Obina blinked. "You've already done so much," he said. "I'm not finished," she replied. "This legacy, it can't die with me. It must outlive all of us." She placed a folder on the table. Inside, architectural plans, program outlines, partnerships. "I've already secured 3 mentors from the UN Tech Initiative," she added. "And I want you 2 involved." Cynthia reached for the folder. "Mama, this is ambitious." Olivia nodded. So was surviving. Construction began in June. By August, the compound took shape. A modern facility with dormitories, tech labs, a business incubator, a community kitchen, counseling rooms. The slogan above the entrance read, "Your story isn't over yet." Olivia's words. Donors came. Government officials visited. The press returned. But this time, Obina and Cynthia stood beside her, not behind. When the Uche Foundation officially launched, it made international headlines. But the opening ceremony was intimate. Olivia stood before a crowd of graduates from her first training cohort. Young men and women once sleeping under bridges, now dressed in suits, laptops in hand. She didn't give a corporate speech. She told a story. "I once stood outside a gate," she said, "in lace, waiting to be let in. The crowd listened. I was told I didn't belong, that I'd be an embarrassment. But God, He rewrites scripts." Applause. "I built this place for you," she said, "because no one is too far gone. Not you. Not even the child who once shut the door on me." Silence. Then, Obina walked up, took the mic. "I am that child," he said. Gasps. "I told my mother she was too old, too out of place. I canceled her ticket. And yet, she gave me a second chance." He turned to her. "You didn't give me a slap. You gave me a job." Laughter. Tears. Respect. Later that evening, back in the mansion, Olivia sat on the balcony with her granddaughters asleep in her lap. Obina and Cynthia were inside, preparing tea. The air was soft, heavy with the scent of hibiscus and a coming rain. She closed her eyes and whispered a short prayer. Not a request, just thanks. For memory, for healing, for a family no longer held together by fear, but by forgiveness. Years passed, not as winds, but as waves, slow, relentless, shaping everything they touched. Mimi and Mara grew into spirited girls with different temperaments, but the same curious fire. Mimi loved numbers and built miniature hotels out of cereal boxes. Mara preferred music and often sang lullabies back to Olivia, word perfect. Every morning, they burst into their grandmother's room, climbed onto her bed, and asked the same question. Mama Olivia, tell us a story. She always did. Not fairy tales. Real stories. About widows who built empires, boys who washed plates and became directors, and gates that once closed on her, only to open years later with applause. They listened, wide-eyed. Not just for the stories, but for the quiet dignity behind every word. The Uche Foundation had grown beyond what any of them predicted. What began with a single compound in Aja became a continent-wide model for restorative enterprise. They trained former inmates in coding, helped single mothers start farms with digital tracking, gave street children access to AI literacy. People flew in from Ghana, Rwanda, Senegal, even France, not to donate, but to study the model. Olivia no longer attended every meeting. Age had begun to slow her steps, but not her mind. She read every report, approved every initiative, mentored from her living room with a glass of warm water beside her and glasses hanging from a beaded chain. Obina had grown into his role, no longer merely her son, now her successor in spirit, not just title. His temper had cooled. His voice had weight. He no longer walked into rooms expecting respect. He earned it one conversation at a time. Cynthia, too, had changed in quiet, visible ways. She no longer competed with her mother-in-law, nor performed her kindness. It had settled into her bones. She headed the foundation's women's initiative and was often seen walking the site barefoot, holding a notebook, listening to old women tell stories of war, abandonment, resilience. At home, Olivia said little, but her eyes followed every step they took. She trusted them now. The 10th anniversary of the Uche Foundation came with little fanfare, at first. Olivia insisted it be simple. No red carpets, she said. This isn't Nollywood. This is Nigeria's future. Still, the government had other ideas. A call came from the office of the president. Madam Olivia Adame was to be awarded the National Medal for Social Transformation, the highest civilian honor for impact work in post-colonial West Africa. She accepted, of course, but she asked for one condition. The ceremony must be held at Olive Hotel, in the same hall. They agreed. On the night of the event, the ballroom was once again polished until it shone. But this time, it didn't feel like a hotel. It felt like a temple. Obina adjusted his mother's necklace. Cynthia helped button her cuffs. Mimi and Mara wore identical white dresses and carried Olivia's speech in a gold-rimmed folder. Guests arrived slowly. Not celebrities, not tycoons. Students. Graduates of the foundation. Street hawkers turned entrepreneurs. Women who once begged now donating. Men who once squatted on shop floors now spoke in fluent French and Swahili to international partners. A quiet audience, but the most powerful Olivia had ever faced. She walked into the hall as she had once walked into it years ago, in blue lace. But this one was different. Not the same dress. This one had been tailored by a woman who had once cleaned her office toilets. Olivia insisted on paying double. She walked slowly, hand on Mimi's shoulder. The applause began before her name was called. When she reached the stage, she took the microphone in silence. The crowd hushed before she opened her mouth. She didn't smile. Not yet. She waited, looked across the hall. Then she began. I was not supposed to be here tonight. Pause. Not because I am too old, but because, in this country, women like me are not designed to be remembered. Silence. I was a widow. I was a housemaid. A hawker. I begged for school fees with wrappers tied around my waist. I carried groundnut trays while my son did homework. And still, I rose. She turned toward Obina, then Cynthia. And I forgave. The crowd stirred. I forgave not because I was noble, but because I knew bitterness is a luxury the poor cannot afford. She continued, "We live in a world that honors children who rise, but forgets the backs they climbed. Tonight is not about me. It is about the invisible women whose names never appear in newspapers. Mothers who went without meat so their children could wear Christmas clothes. Fathers who died early because stress came before sleep. Grandparents who gave their pension money to bribe school gatekeepers." The hall was silent, the air heavy. Olivia breathed. "This medal they are giving me? It is made of metal, but the reward I already wear is flesh and blood." She looked at her grandchildren. "Mimi, Mara, this is your inheritance. Not money, not buildings, but proof that a woman can be dismissed, erased, shamed, and still outlive every whisper against her." Applause thundered. Standing ovation. Some cried. Others simply folded their hands over their chests and bowed their heads. Backstage, after the ceremony, Olivia removed her shoes and sat quietly. Obina knelt beside her. "You've changed everything, Mama." She looked at him. "No," she said. "I just remembered what mattered." Cynthia entered, holding the girls. "Let's go home," Olivia said, smiling. "The world has clapped enough. Let the children sleep." Weeks later, she wrote her will. It was simple, clear, undramatic. To Obina and Cynthia, she left the hotel, the foundation, and the mansion. To Mimi and Mara, she left a private letter, sealed, to be opened when they turned 21. It read, "If you ever feel small, remember I stood in lace outside a gate they tried to shut in my face. And now my name is on the building, not because I shouted, but because I didn't leave. Stay, endure, and build. You are allowed to be soft, but never hollow." She signed it, Mama Olivia. Her passing was quiet. No hospitals, no machines, just a morning when she didn't rise. A cup of tea untouched, a Bible still open to Proverbs, a hand resting softly near the window where she always watched the sun climb. Mimi found her, whispered, "Mama," but Olivia was already gone. Her eyes closed, her face peaceful, not defeated, fulfilled. The funeral brought the nation to a halt, not because she was famous, but because she was necessary. Mourners stretched from Lekki to Surulere. Thousands of former foundation members stood in silence as her casket was lowered into the ground. The president gave a speech, but it was Obina's voice that broke the sky. "My mother was never just a mother. She was the gate, the house, the reason, and everything I am is because she chose not to let betrayal become her language." He knelt by the grave, laid a flower, then rose, not as a son, as a man reborn by grace. The mansion remains. The foundation thrives. The hotel still bears her name. But in the garden, right beneath the hibiscus tree, a bronze bench was installed. On it, a plaque reads, "She waited outside the gate, then became the gate, Madame Olivia Adame." And on Sunday evenings, two little girls still sit there, barefoot, reading aloud stories their grandmother once told them. Not to dream of palaces, but to remember that palaces are built by hands that once scrubbed floors.